Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Evidence, and in today's video I am going to show you how to install Docker on Windows Home and Windows 10 Home and Windows 10 Pro. And as you can see here, I wrote a blog post on it, and you can come here at evidencen.com/install Docker Windows 10. And I'm going to put this link in the description below just in case you want to come back to this blog post. And I'm also going to add this video to this blog post when I'm done. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and install Docker in Windows Home and Windows 10 Pro. Before we install Docker, we have to make sure that your computer meets the requirements. All right. So if you're on Windows 10 Home, you have to make sure that you have the 64-bit version, that's Windows 10 64-bit, version 1903 or higher, and you have to make sure you have at least 4 GB of RAM, okay? And also, you have to install Windows subsystem for Linux. But if you're on Windows Pro computer, Windows 10 Pro, these are the requirements you have to meet. You have to make sure you have Windows 10 64-bit processor, build 19 or higher, 4 GB of RAM, and then you have to have BIOS level virtualization enabled. But don't worry, this might sound a little bit confusing. First, I'm going to show you how to install Docker in Windows 10 Home. And then I'm going to show you how to install Docker on Windows 10 Pro. And here on the screen, I'm going to show you the time stamp of where to start if you have Windows 10 Pro. So first Windows 10 Home, then Windows 10 Pro. So for us to make sure you meet the requirements, you just have to check your system info. So the easiest way to check that is to click on your start menu and then type in system info. And then as you can see here, let me make this a little bit smaller. As you can see here, I have Windows 10 Home. So when you check on your OS name, that's how you know if you have Windows 10 Home or Windows 10 Pro. And then this is my build. So you have to have build you have to have build 1903 or higher, and I have build 1904. All right, so my computer is eligible, and also you have to check how much RAM you have. So down here you can say I have 32 GB of RAM. So make sure you have 4 GB of RAM minimum before you can install Docker on your computer. That's if you have Windows 10 Home. So after you have verified that you have the requirements, your computer meets the requirements, if you're on Windows 10 Home, the next step is for you to install Windows Subsystem for Linux. In the video that I'm going to link above, I'm going to show you how to install Windows Subsystem for Linux, but you can also come here to read this blog post and do it yourself. And the blog post is evidencen.com/WSL2. But I'm going to show you quickly how to install Windows Subsystem for Linux. So the easiest way to install Windows Subsystem for Linux, after you've made sure you meet the requirement, is to come here and type in turn Windows features on or off. And then once that comes up, you scroll down and you see this right here that says virtual machine. You click on it to activate it. And then you see down here where it says Windows Subsystem for Linux. You also click on it to activate it. After you click on this two to activate it, you click OK. It's going to take some time to run, and after it runs, you need to restart your computer. After you are done initializing those two features, then you have to make sure that virtualization is enabled. And to make sure that virtualization is enabled on your computer, there's a couple of ways to check it. You can go back to system info right here, and then you scroll down, and then once you scroll down, you see this hypervisor section. So in this blog post on how to install WSL2 on Windows, you are checking for this. It says Hyper-V requirements. You have to make sure all of this says yes. If all of it doesn't say yes, then you need to figure out how to enable BIOS level virtualization on your computer. But there are two ways to do it. The first way is to check system info here. And as you can see, once you already have it activated, these items will no longer show up. You will just get a message that says hypervisor has been detected. That means you have a hypervisor system like Windows subsystem for Linux running, and you've already enabled this. Another way to check it is let's just open your command line and you type in system info. And then once you scroll the way to the bottom, you see Hyper-V requirements. And the first time you see it, you might get all these options right here. Okay, and then make sure all these options says yes. And after you finish installing Windows subsystem for Linux, then you start to get this message that says hypervisor has been detected, and these options will no longer be displayed. So that's the third step. So just to recap real quick, first step, make sure that your Windows home computer meets this requirement. Second step is to install Windows subsystem for Linux and activate virtualization on your computer. And this is instructions on how to do that. And to do it, you go to Windows, turn features on or off. You turn these features on. Then you verify that you have virtualization enabled on your computer. And if all of this doesn't say yes, you Google how to enable it on your computer, since it varies by BIOS level. So after you have done all this step, then the next step is to install WSL2. And to install WSL2, you go to this link depending on your computer. So if you are on Intel x64 processor, you go to this link and you download the WSL2. Or if you are on ARM64 processor, then you go to this link to download. Like I said, go ahead and watch that video on how to install WSL2 on your Windows computer. And you can find out the type of system you have again in system info. As you can see right here, I have x64 based system. My processor is made from Intel. All right. So after you've installed WSL on your computer, make sure you set the default version to version 2. And that's basically a quick recap of how to install Windows subsystem for Linux on your computer. And of course, you can come read this blog or watch the video on how to do that. So after you have installed Windows subsystem for Linux on your Windows 10 home computer, then the next step is to install Docker on your computer. So to install Docker on your computer, you go to this link. So this is the Docker Hub, and of course I'm gonna put this link in the description below. And once you're on this link, then you just click the Get Docker link right here. And you click it and it will start to download. And once it finished download, I believe it doesn't start automatically. You have to start it manually. Okay, so after it downloads, you click on the downloaded file to install it. And make sure you add Docker to your path. After you've installed Docker, the next step is to start Docker. So to start Docker, you just search here and then you type in Docker. And Docker will start booting up, and you see this tiny icon out here. My Docker right now is doing updates, so we'll let that go on. But once Docker is starting, you see the well icon and it will be blinking. As long as the well icon is kind of like moving around, then that means Docker is starting. But once the well icon stabilizes, that's how you know your Docker environment is ready. And that's basically it in a nutshell of how to install Docker. Now, once I have my Docker up and running, I am going to show you how to test to make sure that your Docker has been properly installed. As you can see here, this is the well icon I was telling you about. So this means that Docker is starting, this well icon, and then we just wait. And once this icon stabilizes, that means our Docker environment is ready. So now this well is stable. That means that our Docker environment is ready. All right. And right now I don't have any images or dev environment or any containers because I did Docker prune, which cleans up everything on your Docker container. It cleans up your images, your containers, it cleans up everything. So as you can see, we have Docker up and running. Now moving on to Windows 10 Pro. Like I said earlier, the process to install Docker on Windows 10 Home is very similar to the process to install Docker on Windows 10 Pro. First, we have to make sure you meet the system requirements. And once again, go here to type in system requirements or system information, and then to tell you the type of computer that you have. All right, and you have to make sure if your OS name says Windows 10 Home, if your OS name says Windows 10 Pro, then you have to make sure you have a 64-bit processor. And right here, this is where you check the type of processor that you have. Mine is x64, and then you have to make sure you're on build 17134 or later. As you can see right here, I'm on Windows 10 Home, and this is my build number. If you're on Windows 10 Pro, make sure that your build number is this number or bigger. And if it's not, you may need to update your computer. Then you have to make sure that you have 4 gigabytes of RAM. So if you look here, I have 32 gigabytes of RAM. So make sure you have at least 4 gigabytes of RAM on your computer. And now, one of the other differences between Windows 10 Pro and Windows 10 Home is that you have to make sure that you have Hyper-V enabled on your computer. But in addition to that, you have to make sure you have BIOS level hardware virtualization enabled. So after you have verified that your Windows 10 Pro computer meets this requirement, then you have to install Windows subsystem for Linux. And this is the process to install Windows subsystem for Linux. I already explained it earlier in this video. So if you skipped to the Windows Pro part of the video, go back and watch the part on how to install Windows Subsystem for Linux. The process to install Windows Subsystem for Linux is the same on Windows Home or on Windows Pro. After you have gone ahead and make sure you have the right requirements, you've installed Windows Subsystem for you have installed Windows Subsystem for Linux. The extra step you have to do with Windows 10 Pro is you have to turn on Hyper-V. So if I go here and I click on turn Windows features on or off, if you scroll down here, if you have a Windows 10 Pro machine, you will see something that says Hyper-V. And then once you see that, make sure you click on Hyper-V and then you click the two sub options below it. And if you're on Windows 10 home computer, you will not see Hyper-V. Instead, you will see Windows Hypervisor Platform. If you see Windows Hypervisor Platform instead of Hyper-V, that means your computer doesn't have this option and you're on Windows Home 10 Home. But if you're on Windows 10 Pro, you should see Hyper-V. So make sure you click on it and then you click OK, and then you may have to restart your computer. So just to recap real quick, I know this can get confusing. If you're on Windows 10 Pro, make sure your computer meets the requirements. Alright, make sure you install Windows subsystem for Linux. Using these instructions or just watching earlier part of this video, and I'm gonna link this video in the comment section below too. And then the next step is to make sure that Hyper-V requirement has been met for your operating system, and make sure everything here is checked yes. And this is part of the instructions to install Windows subsystem for Linux. And then most importantly, make sure you go back to turn Windows features on or off and select this option. So those are kind of like the steps for Windows 10 Pro. Meet the requirement, install Windows subsystem for Linux, make sure you have Hyper-V selected. So after that is done, then you can go ahead and install Docker. So you can go to this link, which is the regular Docker link, and just get Docker for your computer. And after you get Docker for your computer, it doesn't start automatically. Like I said earlier, you have to click here, click on Docker, type in Docker, click on it for it to start. And once it starts to go, this is gonna be shuffling up and down once it's starting. And once it's stabilized, once this icon is stabilized, that means your Docker environment is ready to go. Oh, and I almost forgot, I told you I will show you how to test your Docker installation. After you have installed Docker, you can check to make sure your Docker is running it's running as it's supposed to. So you can just Google Docker hello, and then you get options of you just click the first link on how to do hello world in Docker. And to do it is very simple. So once you've installed Docker and you just want to verify that you have Docker installed properly, and like I said earlier, make sure that you allow Docker to be added to your path during the installation process. And this is how you can call Docker from your command line. So to test your Docker installation, you can just do Docker run hello world. So from here, I'm just gonna do Docker run hello world. And then it's gonna say it's unable to find the image hello world latest locally. And then it's gonna download this image from the internet because there's no local version of it. And if this runs successfully, that means you have Docker successfully installed on your computer. Alright, so this ran successfully. Okay, so that's good. Now if we go back to Docker, as you can see here, now I have a new container called peaceful whatever, I can't say that. And when you click on it, you see the same message that you got on your console. So this is the equivalent of Docker. This is the equivalent of hello world in Docker. And if you run Docker run hello world and it says Docker cannot be found, it could be that during the installation process you didn't add Docker to your computer path. You need to add Docker to your computer path in order to be able to call it like this. That's pretty much it for this video. In the next video, I am going to show you how to use Docker for data science projects. Basically, I am going to build a data science app, and we are gonna launch it using Docker. So that's the next video. Subscribe to the channel so you get it. Thank you. So that's basically it. That is the basics of how to install Docker on Windows 10 Home and how to install Docker on Windows 10 Pro. And I understand this can be a little bit confusing. If this video helped you, please let me know in the comment section below. If this video was confusing the way I explained it, please also let me know in the comment section below. I may have to redo this video to make it better if it's too confusing for you. And also, this blog post on how to install Docker on Windows 10 and how to install Windows subsystem for Linux, because you need it to install Docker, and the video on how to install Windows subsystem for Linux, and the link to Docker. All of this is gonna be in the description below. I hope you like this video. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up, and remember to subscribe to the channel. I make tutorial content like this and also make data science videos. And of course, here evidencen.com is my personal website. This, you can come here at machinelearningeducation.com/free to join my data science group. Here I have different data science resources. So when I create data science tutorials and notebook, I put it all in this place. And also I send that regular email updating people about what's on my channel. So come here at machinelearningeducation.com/free. And you can also come here at machinelearningeducation.com. And here on the main website, you can support my work if you wanted to. No pressure and no obligation at all. And if you come here to the main website at machinelearningeducation.com and you don't see this page, the link is probably gonna be somewhere up here, up here in the menu. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. If you like it, please again give it a thumbs up. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you on the next video. Bye.